What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. Nick Alfidi is back as a guest. Nick, how are you today?
I mean, it's great to be back here. This is like sports heaven for a lot of sports fans. Right? You got so many sports going on in the NBA season, NHL season heating up, football season's kind of at that point where, like, I know the witching hour is like a really like popular thing for Red Zone. That kind of feels like this is the type of month where that starts happening, right? You got a lot of firing going on. Playoff picture is heating up, so it's a great time to be a sports fan.
Absolutely. So we're gonna start off with a little bit of basketball. So season is underway, as you just mentioned, Nick, and so we're in the first portion of the season. So the topic today is we're talking about the biggest surprises in the NBA, both good and bad. We'll start with the good. Who has been like some of your biggest pleasant surprises in the NBA thus far?
I don't think we can talk about pleasant surprises without the Cavs.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of, at least for my perception of the Cavs, I'll take it back to when Donovan Mitchell signed that like really big extension, right? I didn't think, it kind of seemed to me that Donovan Mitchell's time with the Cavs was, his writing was on the wall a little bit.
I mean, too.
You saw last year in the playoffs especially that there was a clear ceiling with the team. Granted, they played a great Boston Celtics team in the second round, but you know they go to a game 7 with a young, unproven Magic team, and it kind of is pretty apparent that Donovan Mitchell is kind of like the 1A on that team, but there isn't the supporting cast around him isn't necessarily what you thought it would be with Mobley and Garland, and there kind of felt to me like there was a ceiling, despite the fact that their record was pretty decent. It felt to me, honestly, if I'm thinking about it, the last team Donovan Mitchell was on, which is
Utah,
which is the Utah,
it's like a mirror image,
which is the Utah Jazz, right? They had, Mitchell was their 1A, their scoring option. He had that kind of second star that was kind of unique in the sense that they're more of a defensive anchor for the team, like Gobert is and like Mobley is. And then you have like your Mike Conley kind of equivalent with Darius Garland. I know they play a different style of game, but that's kind of the equivalent of that like second scorer on the team. But you look at their record now, they're 13-0. You can't be anything but impressed. I don't know the sustainability of it. The NBA is a little bit weird, right? Because, and we'll get on, I'm sure we'll touch on the Warriors with this as well. I don't try to take takeaways in the season this early. I mean, you can't be anything but impressed with the Cavs, right? I mean, 13-0 kind of speaks for itself, but I just have to see how sustainable this is. I don't think they're going to go like 74-8 or something. That'd be hilarious. But,
that'd be crazy.
But they're definitely a contender especially in an East that right now, I mean, you look at it, there's
jumbled. Dude,
the Knicks, if you said the Knicks heading into the season of the 4 seed, you'd be like, okay, they're not that's a little bit disappointing, but still a top 4 seed in the conference. They're 5-6.
Yeah, they're not playing great.
There's literally 3 teams in that conference that are over 500.
Cleveland, Boston, Orlando.
One of them being Orlando, who's 7-6. So, I mean, you could say maybe it's a byproduct of the East team struggling out of the gate, but definitely the Cavs is kind of like that number 1 team that I didn't expect they had this in them, especially considering the fact that, we all thought Mitchell, we were doing jersey swaps in July and August, and you got those Bleacher Report jersey swaps going out. Where's Donovan Mitchell going to next? I see him in a Heat jersey, then a Sixers jersey. Maybe he is, set in Cleveland, and maybe this is the year that they can finally actually contend for finals appearance.
But yeah, like my issue with them is they kept running back the same group, and like you said, it was pretty clear that this was the ceiling. They fired Bickerstaff. I do like Kenny Atkinson a lot. He actually went to high school with my dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's why I always kind of root for him. But I do like him as a coach. I thought he was wronged in Brooklyn. Look what's happened since then. It's kind of been a disaster over there. I do think he's a good coach, very good talent evaluator. So I do think he's a better coach than Jimmy Bickerstaff. I don't necessarily think it was on Bickerstaff. I mean, there was no shot they're going to be Boston last year. He got them as far as they could possibly go, but they've been locking up all the guys they already have. They locked up Mitchell, they locked up Evan Mobley, they gave Darius Garland an extension. A lot of guys you thought, all right, they might move. We thought they were going to move Mitchell. They ended up giving him a long-term extension. We thought maybe they would move Darius Garland. There was rumors that Garland, if they extended Mitchell, would ask to be traded. Didn't happen. He ended up signing an extension. It seems like every year it looks like they're going to trade Jared Allen, and it just hasn't happened. And obviously you have Evan Mobley, and like you said, Mobley, his offensive game hasn't come as far as we thought, at least to this point. But right now they are absolutely rolling. They're 13-0. I think the record is when Golden State went like what 21-0,
24.
24.
I remember when we were Warriors fan, by the way. When we were 24-0, and the Bucks. This was pre playoff appearance for Giannis. I think actually no, sorry, they made the playoffs the year before, but it was like they were the 6th seed and they just got bounced by like the last iteration of Derrick Rose on the Bulls. That was a playoff team.
Yeah.
So that was like pre Giannis to what he was in now, right? And I remember them printing out 24-1 shirts like it's the NBA Finals, and Draymond was on record saying like that's one of the most wildest like regular season atmospheres he's ever been on. I would be shocked. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd be shocked if they get the 24.
Oh no, yeah, I don't. Yeah. I don't see. I don't have their upcoming schedule in front of me, but they've won 13. They would have to win 11 more straight games. Like that's. And like that Golden State team, we all knew that team was stacked, and that team was, one of the three best teams in the league. Cleveland was not on that radar at all. Maybe you had them as like a playoff team, kind of like they were the last 2 years, 4, 5, 6 seed. Maybe they sneak out a series win if they got a good matchup, but no one had them being like a team that could challenge the Boston Celtics and then depending on what your opinion is, the New York Knicks or whoever else you think has a chance to come out of. Whoever else you think is a threat in the Eastern Conference, whether you think it's the Indiana Pacers or whether you think it's Miami or Philadelphia, no one really had Cleveland in that category. But look, here they are, 13-0. But so yeah, big surprise for me. Speaking of the Warriors, I've been really surprised with them. I was not high on them going in. Obviously, Stephen Curry's great, and he's still great. But then you lose Klay Thompson. I look over the last couple of years. You let Klay walk. You've had a couple of young pieces that I thought you could have kept. Jordan Poole, who has been horrible in Washington, though he played well last night, and is also a decent start this year. There's a young player you traded away for Chris Paul, and is he still there? No, he's a Spurs. That's right.
Yeah.
So you traded him away for a year of a 8-year-old Chris Paul.
Essentially a salary dump. Yeah.
You just kind of gave him away for nothing. You've had a couple of young guys over the last couple of years. I thought you could have kept for the future, and they kind of gave away to try and squeeze out one more ring. And you got one a couple of years ago, but haven't been able to follow up with a ton of success since then, at least by the Warriors' standards. Of course, they went to the second round 2 years ago, lost to the Lakers, and then this past year lost in the play-in. And I had them as like a play-in-ish team again this year, but they made a couple of additions this offseason. You bring in D'Anthony Melton, you bring in Buddy Hield, so they were clearly trying to add I guess replace Klay with like a collection of guys. They were trying to go out and get Lauri Markkanen. Didn't really work. I heard they were talking. There was a rumor, at least Draymond said on his podcast, that they were talking to Paul George. Also, that didn't end up working out.
Yeah.
And they were looking for like a co-star or Curry or like another real, like a 1B or a legit 2.
Yeah.
Weren't able to find it, so I didn't know if they had enough. And this obviously isn't the same team that they were 5 to 6 years ago. Stephen Curry, although he's still great, is much older. Draymond's obviously not the same player. Klay isn't there anymore. A lot of these guys are much older. It's not the same team. But look, they're sitting here at 9-2. They're playing really well. They knocked off the Boston Celtics last week. They look really good. And then Nick, you're a Warriors fan. Like, what do you think has been the main reason why they're sitting at 9-2 right now?
So I think to me, what the hallmark of the Warriors dynasty, we always talk about they're like one of the top 3 teams every year in offensive efficiency, any offensive metric, they'd be like near the top, right? How revolutionary the system Steve Kerr came in and the synergy with him, Klay, Steph, Draymond, how that entire system worked, kind of revolutionized the NBA. I mean, there's a lot of talk of Steph doing that single-handedly. I think it's more of a collection of like an ideology that team played with that people. I mean, it even traces back to his ties with Popovich and Spurs and all that, right? But I think the hallmark of that dynasty and that run was just how good they were defensively as well, especially when KD was there and they'd be able to go small, yet you'd have KD and Draymond playing the 4 and 5, and you'd have legitimately like one of the best 3-and-D guard in Klay pre-injuries. Obviously, the injuries have taken that away from him. Steph, who isn't a plus defender, but he definitely gives effort and has improved in that aspect. Klay and Draymond, obviously, KD and Draymond, Defensive Player of the Year winner, probably should be a 2-time winner. honestly, that's kind of one of my big irks is that he didn't win another. And KD was like filled in great for being a 5 and all the things they could do with that lineup. But for me, yeah, the defense is what I think is carrying the day for them. I guess I'll touch offensively first, right? You mentioned it with, trying to replace Clay with a collection of guys, which first off, they wanted to get him back. It wasn't a sense,
of course.
It wasn't a sense of, I'm going to let this legend of 13 years walk away, right?
Yeah.
It was more of a, Clay wants to feel comfortable. He wants to feel rewarded. And it goes back to when stars don't really, people often say, oh, why is he asking for so much money, right? Or, why doesn't he just take a pay cut? Like, he's set for life. Why does he want this money? Oftentimes, being, and you talk with the NBA Players Association talking about this a lot, when you ask for a certain contract, it is because you feel you are worth that much money. You feel like if you are given an X amount of money, that organization is giving you X worth. Like, that's kind of their assessment tool to say, hey, we appreciate you X amount. And to Clay's, I guess, kind of inner circle and him himself, he didn't feel the Warriors were necessarily doing that. And Dallas gave him all the insurances he wanted, right? Getting 30 minutes a night, getting this much amount of money, being in the system that allows him to just kind of do his own thing and be valued. And I think we've kind of offensively, that role has gone to a couple of guys. Buddy Hield more specifically is kind of that kind of player that just runs around screens, is active offensively off ball, and just puts up shots. Steve Kerr talked often and a lot about trying to get as much threes as possible up. I mean, in Hawaii, that was his entire thing. And you think to yourself, like, the Warriors putting up more threes? How is that even possible? They've actually gone down in the last couple of years in their three-point attempts, while the league's gone up, which I think is a sign to what you were talking about. They're getting older. They can't play with as much pace, so they're trying to slow it down a little bit. And we've all seen the turnover issues when you're playing that style. So they've replaced Clay with about 4 or 5 guys. But defensively, back to my point of why this team is so good, Draymond is playing, I think, the best. I'll disagree with you on the Draymond situation. I think he is, okay, maybe he's not like 2016 Draymond when he won Defensive Player of the Year honors and all that. And obviously his biggest enemy is himself, right?
Of course.
There are demons in Draymond.
My goodness gracious.
I love him, but, he can be a case sometimes, right? To say it lightly. But he is shooting the best efficiency of his career from 3. Yeah. He's shooting a plus 3 attempts. He is shooting, I think, 45% from 3. Obviously, that will correct itself. But, I mean, last year on 2 attempts, 2.5, he was shooting 38, 39%. That's all they need from him. If he can give them, like, even just plus shooting from 3 from those corners when he gets the ball, he can legitimately be a plus offensive and plus defensive player, despite the fact that he's already like an elite playmaker in the system that and the connection he has with Steph. But defensively, I think, it depends I think the Chet injury really, as unfortunate as that is, gives Draymond the path to Defensive Player of the Year if he can stay healthy and not suspended, because he's playing, I think, just how active he is in passing lanes, how active he is 1 through 5, able to guard people. Him and Wiggins, the length they present, I think this entire team, though, has bought in to playing defensive basketball. And you talk about let's close this on the Clay point, right? You replace Clay essentially with, give or take 4 guys, right? Buddy Hield, Bo Melton, and Wiggins has kind of taken a little bit more of that role. You have like Lindy Waters off the bench playing more, Pajemski playing more, Moses Moody playing more as like a 12th man. I was like, when he got extended, I'm like, you got extended again? Or he got sorry, not extended again. You got extended? I'm like, there's this whole beef, it seems like, with Moody trying to get minutes, because every time he plays, he's playing well, and then he doesn't get minutes. It's so confusing to me. But you replace one guy with like 4. And again, I don't know. Reggie Miller was talking about this on the TNT broadcast the other day. I don't know how sustainable that is as we head to the playoffs. But, dude, if you can have 12 guys that are just have length and present effort essentially to play defense. That really is what defense comes down to, is the buy-in and the effort from everyone on that team. If you could play 12 guys rotating and playing fresh, I really do think that's a successful, at least for the regular season, path for the Warriors. So to answer your question, I've rambled on way too much. Basically, it's the defense, in my opinion. The offense is going to be there with Steph and his gravity, but defensively, I think I've been the most impressed.
That's a good point. Yeah, look, Draymond, even as of last year, I still thought he was a good defender, still a guy that could be a second team all defense. Mm-hmm. I thought he's a guy, right? He can still guard most of the threes and the fours in the league, but he can't guard nearly as many of the guards and the fives as he once did. But so far, he has shown him the ability to still be able to guard 1 through 5. And I'm the first thing from a Draymond fan. He, like you said, he's a massive head case. And I'm tired of his antics for sure. But he's been a lock defensively. Like you said, he's doing enough offensively to, especially with how much defense he's playing, you take the 7-8 points that you're going to get from Draymond. And you have a collection of guys that are stepping up. Andrew Wiggins, Anthony Melton, all these guys, like Jonathan Kuminga obviously had a phenomenal finish to last year. He's playing well. Obviously, he's a guy who's probably very motivated with his contract coming up.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get off course too much, but what do you think we're gonna do with Kuminga? Because to me, he's the odd man out in the sense of his skill set isn't really what we want. In a vacuum, you want a slashing type, a guy that can get his own bucket, someone that brings something more dynamic. Steph can't always do that, especially when he's not on the floor. Wiggins is more of an off-ball scorer. Mm. He's not really an on-ball scorer in the sense of, he'll be away from the ball, but when he gets it, he's able to create, but he can't create on his own. Kuminga gives you that, but he also has his warts. There's that oftentimes. I remember in the Dallas game, he had a smaller guy on him, took the matchup. That's what you should do, and puts him into the post. And I think he had Melton wide open for a 3, and he got a 24-second violation. At times he's a little bit too aggressive. What do you think we're gonna do with him?
He's restricted after the season, so obviously they can match any offer. I'd be shocked if he's not a Warrior next year. He's really, especially for a team like we said, is a little older. You have a young guy like that who's playing really well. It's really hard to justify letting that guy go, especially for nothing. Mm-hmm. So I do think they will get something done, unless something really wacky happens. Unless he underperforms so horribly this year to where dude, we can't give you $100 million deal. But I can't imagine that happening. At this level, guys don't just forget how to play basketball, or he just performs so well to the point where he wants a lot more money than the Warriors are willing to offer. Though even in that case, I think they would figure something out. They come to a sort of compromise. Maybe you throw an opt-out in there so we can hit the market again in a couple of years and maybe go and get a more of a max or a super max deal. So I do think they will lock him up. You look at what they have right now. Out Steph, your window is only so large probably to get him one more championship just because of his age. I mean, contract-wise, I'm not worried about that. I don't see him ever not playing for the Golden State Warriors. Maybe when he's at the very, very, very end, the Warriors are really bad, and there's just no way to retool another championship for to when he'll still be in the league. Maybe he goes like when Tony Parker went to the Charlotte Hornets last year. He really had nothing left. He already had won 4 championships. He already had a Hall of Fame career locked up. He's like, let's go just have some fun for a season. Golden State's going in, at that point the Spurs are going in their own direction. So Steph, I'm sure, will be there as long as he's still a top-tier player. And then you look, all right, you have Andrew Wiggins as a complimentary piece. Podziemski's a good, nice young player. Kuminga's the same thing. Moses Moody is still young. So I think, I do think they will re-sign him. I was honestly surprised they did not already. He obviously was that one Peter Rip for the year where all those guys signed deals. Alfred Sengun got his deal, Jalen Green got his deal, Mobley got his deal. All those guys were getting their deals. I was surprised Kuminga wasn't part of that, to be honest. I do think they will figure something out. But then from there, all right, because team building is much harder in the NBA now with the new rules for the CBA. So to me, they probably need one more big man. To me, I mean, Kevon Looney on the boards is phenomenal, obviously. Maybe get one more big man, a little more offensive-minded. Lawyer marketing would have been a really nice piece. Obviously, Utah, first of all, their price for him was through the roof.
Well, that's an age.
That's Danny Ainge for
right.
you. His price, and then obviously they ended up signing him to an extension, so I doubt he'll be available for a couple of years now.
Do you think, really quick, I don't know if this is like jumping the shark a little bit, but do you think, what do you think their ceiling is? Because for me, heading into the year, I was very much like, hey, if we can make back the playoffs and win around, that's kind of where I'm at this point. I don't know if my expectations have shifted yet, because 11 games in, like, our resume is very impressive, right? If you want to get into that kind of narrative, like it's kind of like a who have you beat. We've talked about a little bit about that with the Cavs. Warriors have beaten OKC on the road. Boston, granted, no Brown or Porzingis, but Boston on the road. They've beaten Dallas at home. They've beaten... I'm trying to figure who else we played that's been impressive. Let me really quickly... I think... I want to say there's one more, like, marquee win I'm just, like, blanking on right now. We obviously got smashed by the Cavs, but that was a kind of tough stretch with those 4 games.
Wait, here, I got the schedule. They beat the brakes off the Blazers. They beat the brakes off Utah.
Yeah.
You lost to the Clippers. You beat Pelicans pretty heavily. Did the same thing again.
Yeah.
You beat the Rockets. You beat the Wizards. You beat Boston.
Yeah.
Obviously, you lost to Cleveland.
Right.
You beat Oklahoma City.
And then
you beat Dallas. And then now that's where we are right now.
Our upcoming schedule isn't that bad. Yeah, I would say. I mean, the Rockets win is kind of the one that was like, oh, okay, that's the first one that gave me, because I mean, Utah, Trailblazers, like those are teams I expect us to still win, or expect us to still win. The Rockets are someone I thought could generally like pass us up as like that like 7-6 seed, or 7-8 seed in that play-in range, because they almost did it last year, if you remember.
Yeah.
And if you want to like talk about like ascending and descending teams, I was very much in the line of thinking of Houston's ascending, and we obviously would be descending. It looks like the move by, I got to give Mike Dunleavy credit. Obviously, a lot of fans were giving him, I probably can't say the word on this podcast, but he was public enemy number 1 for a while.
Yes, he was getting a lot of flack, for sure.
But it looks like the marketing deal, and same for the Paul George deal. You mentioned Draymond, I was talking about it. It looks like this is best case scenario.
Yeah.
Because you still have the depth that is, again,
Definitely
a trademark with the Warriors teams of the past. Obviously, there's not the high-end talent with Steph. I was thinking about this. Maybe the second star we've all been talking about is Draymond. Obviously, he's not the conventional second star in the sense of a scoring option, right? When we talk about second star, we talk about second scoring option. That's kind of how the NBA is nowadays.
Yeah.
With how pacey and how offense have kind of taken that jump. But Draymond, from a just purely defensive and playmaking standpoint, maybe this elevated play of Draymond, that is your second star, and then the scoring element is kind of taken by the 4 guys kind of replacing Clay, quote unquote. But for me, to answer your question, I still think the Warriors are, I think we're definitely a playoff team now, right? But I got to see more, because we had not to the same extent, but we did start off 6-1 last year, and I was like, oh, okay, so maybe like vibes were just off last year. We're back, right? No. We all saw how that season ended. Obviously, Draymond gets suspended. Steph gets hurt, which I'm still nervous about, and that's why I'm really excited that he's only I think he's playing 30 minutes a night at most, which is great.
They're much deeper this year.
Get as much rest as you need, Steph, because as much as we hate Steve, well, I don't, but Warriors fans don't like Steve Kerr, and they're like, why are you keeping him on a 12-6, 12-6 format? Like, we're terrible without him on the floor, blah, 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 blah. Of course we're going to be worse without him on the floor, but you need him fresh towards the end of game situations, so he can close like he did in Paris, and then
against Dallas.
And we saw how animated he got at the end.
He was very happy.
So, I mean, for the Warriors, I'm still kind of I'm excited, but cautiously optimistic.
Right. Yeah. Very early on. But let's shift to the back part of the segment. Who has been, one of the teams that you've been surprised that they've gone off to a poor start this year? They've been a lot worse than you thought.
All right, I'm gonna have you guess, because this is the fun part.
Is it Philadelphia?
No, that's exactly what I thought. Because okay, not maybe the record isn't as bad, but Jake, when you pair two players,
that was players, they were never getting out of second round.
Maxey's hurt. look, they'll still be a playoff team because the East is
I'll think about
has
it.
been bad, and it's gonna course correct at some time. Like you think the
I mean,
Pacers,
yeah, like the 3 seed won't have 42 wins.
right? Like the Pacers and the Knicks should figure it out.
Yeah.
As the season goes on, the Heat, I mean, do their thing as they kind of like late surge. They'll be a formidable first round exit at most. We'll see about that. I still love like their culture as much as I just wish they had a little bit more high end talent. But
I know, yeah, they kind of set up. They've kind of set out for the last couple of years. It's a shame. Like they have obviously an amazing coach. They have the culture there. They have a couple pieces. They just need to add some more.
I mean, we'll see. That's always the trade deadline talk. But talking about trades, it's a pipe dream. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But to answer your question, it's the Bucks.
That was going to be my next guys. Yeah.
I mean, man,
just they look off.
Doc Rivers commits war crimes. I mean, he can do anything. He can do it. Man,
he must have something on the NBA that keeps getting chances.
Look, I'm not gonna ever criticize an NBA head coach. I can't do the job, right? But dude, what do you think he does when he's in the huddle? So he's in the huddle, right? And he's just writing on the clipboard. He's talking in his raspy voice. And what do you think? He just writes like 2008 on the clipboard. And they're like, all right, team, let's go. Like, because he should thank his lucky stars that Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce like saved his legacy. Because I feel like for the last like 3-4 years, again, I can't do the job, right? I'm the least qualified person to talk about this. But it's long enough sample size post
Yes.
Boston. You have like the LA run that was constantly disappointing. We're like, oh, that's just a Clippers thing, the organization. And then you go to Philadelphia, right? That was the next stop he hit. I'm not like forgetting anything in between. And then you're like, well, Embiid just hurt all the time. It's like, okay. And then you go to Milwaukee after you fire your coach when you're like 34-17 because your defense is bad. And you're like, this is the move that's going to get us over the top. And it's Doc Rivers. And it's like, now your season ended last year in a very humiliating fashion. Was he replaced? Did Doc Rivers replace Griffin in the last season or the season before? Yeah, okay. So I was thinking
during the regular season, yeah.
Yeah, Budenholzer was in charge for that Heat collapse. Doc Rivers will get fired, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know how he doesn't.
Whether it's at the end of the year or now, I just don't. I mean, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I love Giannis, but let's talk about maybe how he's a little bit of a coach killer.
Yeah, look. A few years ago, Giannis was one of my favorite players in the league. Obviously, what he does in the court obviously is incredible. I loved him, but as the years have gone on, he's kind of irked me a little bit.
Why?
Just like you said, the coach killer thing. Obviously, because remember in that first series against Miami, he did not play in 2 of those games. I thought I actually didn't think he was as efficient as the numbers say in that series. He went to the line a lot in that series. So and then
he was dealing with a back issue. That was why he was out.
Yeah. So but also it would have been nice if he could stay on the court. And that was a big reason why you lose that series. So he kind of got Budenholzer fired. And then,
Budenholzer got Budenholzer fired. Giannis saved his job for like 2 years from the 21 finals run. They lose that series, he's gone. So
yeah, he did. Looking back, it's weird. At the time, I didn't hate the firing. I was like, you just lost to an 18-5 game. I know Jimmy Butler went nuts that series, but still. But you got to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna do? Trade Giannis? Come on,
shoot, that might happen.
At this point, yeah, looking like it. But then last year, yes, they were struggling defensively, and look at the time, maybe if you say, all right, if we match up with the Boston Celtics in the conference finals, we lose in 7 games. Like, okay, but that's at the time was a long way away. I think it was like 30-13, I believe was the mark, something like that. I think they were second in the Eastern Conference, and you ask him for, I don't know why. And there's a couple of times Giannis in the press conference said like, oh, everyone's got to be better. It's kind of seemed like he was like indirectly saying that I don't think he ever loved Adrian Griffin, which I was always surprised about the hire at the time. I was like, should we that's a big boy job. We're bringing in a first time guy. Mm-hmm. And it's weird. I read that Giannis wanted him, and now it seemed like he got him fired. So it was just a really weird situation.
Yeah.
And now, look, Doc Rivers is the storyline with Doc Rivers is very obvious. You just spoke on it. I think any NBA fan with a conscience knows to deal with Doc Rivers. Obviously, he's been living off the 2 NBA championship for longer than he definitely should have.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah. I mean, it. Like, do I think the Bucks just on high-end talent alone can figure it out? Yeah. I mean, I think they could obviously make the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, dude, their supporting cast has totally done a 180. If you think about the 2021 run, right? You have Giannis as the established star, Chris Middleton as the established second piece, who like took over. I think it was I don't want to say game 4, but he took over the end of game 6.
Yeah.
He hit that like mid-range shot that pretty much ended the game, to bring him up 4 in that series. I think he had like a 50 point game in game 4 or something crazy. He's obviously dealt with injuries since then, and he hasn't really been the same, though. Last year, he kind of went off in the playoffs. Jrue Holiday was their, like, third option. He could score. He obviously could play elite level defense.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously in Boston now, so you strengthen a rival. And that's the crazy thing is that that's the thing with why the Dame situation, why he has so much pressure on himself, is you compound the fact that he struggles and he hasn't meshed well with Giannis, and he's kind of obviously a defensive downgrade in the biggest way for Jrue Holiday. But you also, to make that move, you sent him to the Trailblazers, right? Jrue Holiday, that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who then gets traded to the Boston Celtics, one of your biggest rivals. You strengthen your rival and you get weaker, which at the time I think everyone, kind of collectively was like, well, maybe this core 3 of Middleton, Jrue Holiday, and Giannis has run its course. You don't want a situation like you got in 2020 where, heading into the 2021 season, obviously there was so much pressure on Giannis to win and the Bucks to win because you had the bubble thing in 2020. Yeah. You had against the Heat. You had the 2019 loss to the Raptors when you thought maybe that was your time. And hey, if they win that series, they probably win the finals because the Warriors obviously were hurt to God knows how much. So from a front office standpoint, if you want to keep your star happy and you want to avoid the whole Cleveland LeBron thing when he leaves because they don't give him enough support, I understood it from that standpoint, right? You immediately give him support when he asks for it, but you can't say it's done nothing but backfire. Now you look at the supporting cast; it was one of the most deep teams in 2021 and 22, and now you have a game like last night when Giannis it's like 24-20 something Milwaukee against the Pistons. Giannis ends up dropping 60 in the game, but I think there's a crazy stat where Giannis had 20, I think near the end of the first quarter, Giannis had 22 points.
Yeah.
The rest of the team went like 0 for 20 combined and had 2 points.
Good Lord.
Like, Bobby Portis, they've done a total 180 on him.
Mm-hmm.
Middleton, again, can he stay healthy? I don't know. I mean, even Dame, it's just weird. Like, I will admit I am not the most locked in with Milwaukee basketball right now. So I'm not going to make these bold statements about Dame, whether he should be traded or not, blah, blah, blah. But I do think there is a shift, in him. And look, there's a human element to this too, right? He went through a divorce. He's moving. He spent his entire life in Portland. I don't think he wanted to leave Portland. I really don't. I think even though he wanted to win, I think he certainly wants to compete for the championship. He loved the city. He was there for all his career, and he definitely was competitive. Gets them to the Western Conference Finals in 19. There's a human element to it. He hasn't really looked comfortable in Milwaukee. No. And going from the clear-cut number 1 on kind of like middle
playing more
teams,
off-ball role, which he's not used to.
Right, and his usage rate has gone down because he's not the number 1 option anymore. And then when he's asked to be the one, like the playoff series against Indiana last year, he goes crazy, and it's like, where's that Dame? Yeah. Well, it just seems to me they don't mesh. Him and Giannis don't mesh well. I don't think Giannis is going to get traded. I can't see him in.
Not in the regular season.
I can't see. If it's going to happen, it's going to be
after the year for sure.
But I can't see him in any other jersey than Milwaukee. Maybe I'm just I said the same thing about Clay, and I see him in wearing 31 for Dallas. It's weird. I was watching the game the other night, and I couldn't believe it. So when Clay's putting up those threes on those in those transition buckets opportunities he have with Luka pushing the tempo and kicks it out to Clay, and I had to catch myself. I'm like, oh my God, I'm hoping he misses. I've seen that same. I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen that same play. I've seen that same
over and over and over again.
I've seen that same instance where Clay is like running in transition. And I'm hoping it goes in. Now it's like, oh my god. Now it's like he's one of those guys I hope he misses.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
Must be.
But I can't see Giannis in any other jersey. I do think the Bucks, like, if you want to talk about, let's get trying to get back to just our closing thoughts on the Bucks. Do you think they beat Cleveland in the series right now?
Right now, no.
Celtics?
No.
Knicks?
No.
Pacers?
No.
What are the Bulls doing there? Oh my God! Look, like the Bulls, Hawks, Nets, Heat, Pistons, and Hornets are all like 5 and 8. Oh my God, this division is trash.
Yikes.
Or a conference. Well, I mean, I guess you expect the Sixers. I guess the Sixers will be in the playoffs. The Sixers. A healthy Sixers team.
Healthy Sixers in the first round now.
I mean,
there you go.
I mean, they're 4 and 8. They really should have lost last night.
Yeah,
if you saw
they were
the game.
down like double digits to the Pistons in the third quarter.
I think there was
taking over.
I don't remember how. I don't know if it was like a late like foul call. I don't know how the situation happened. So apologies, but they put it onto the line like a 90% free throw shooter. All you had to do was make one. There's a second left of the game. I don't think the Bucks had timeouts. Actually, no. Sorry, they did. But they had a chance to take the lead with like a second left, and he misses 2 very badly. Like front rims it. That could really like change the season for the Bucks because you're looking at 3 and 9 to start the year. Like that's a big hole. I mean, they're lucky their conference sucks right now, to be honest with you. So that's the only saving grace for the Bucks. It's just disappointing. I really like Giannis. I think despite the fact, it has to be said that there is something going on with him and getting coaches fired. But he's a generally nice person.
Is it me or does he seem really frustrated? Like in the interview after the game, he looks.
Yeah. I mean, of course he
looks like it seems like every interview he gets more and more agitated.
If you ever read there's like a really nice autobiography of his by Mirren Fader, I think is her name. I think she works for The Athletic. I may be wrong. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But she wrote his autobiography. It's really good. It kind of is in line with who he is. I mean, he grew up
he's
very impoverished, in Greece, and he kind of had to work. His family was getting evicted because they couldn't pay their rent for the longest time, and he was someone that he had to kind of. He's a very strong person in terms of his work ethic because he dealt with a lot of money issues, racial abuse in Greece, right? He's someone that's he's also someone that's very stuck in his values, right? How he cares about his family, how he cares about how he approaches challenges. He's very much a competitive person, but he does not quit. Like he was someone when I think he was playing for Olympiakos' under 18 team at the time. Him and his brother, Thanasis, his older brother, and he wanted to be a soccer player. He did not want to play. He did not want to play basketball. Yeah, his favorite athlete growing up was Thierry Henry, the Arsenal legend. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to play basketball, and he was only convinced to do so by someone who just offered to give him a little bit of money. And obviously his family was struggling, so he's like, "Sure, I'll do this for money." And then his incredible athletic abilities, God-given abilities, and his strong work ethic, and promise this going somewhere, got him to where he is. And he was kind of this underrated, no one knows him type talent, and we've seen him blossom. And I don't think, to your point, he is very competitive. So I don't think, I can't imagine he is happy with this.
Yeah.
I for sure know that the minute this happens, he puts pressure on the front office to win, because that's ultimately, as nice of a guy as he seems, he is a fierce competitor who wants to win. Excuse me, bad voice crack. He wants to win, even though he can be goofy sometimes. The whole handshake thing, the dad jokes is. But yeah, I can't envision him requesting a trade. But yeah, he's obviously not happy right now.
Yeah. The last question, then I'll give my most disappointing team so far, and then we'll go to a different segment. Who do you think hypothetically gets traded first if it comes to that, Dame or Giannis?
Oh, I mean, is there a trade value for Dame right now? That's a dumb question. I know that sounds ridiculous to ask, but like,
it certainly isn't as high as it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. I would probably say Dame.
Okay.
If it's a move to get like to kind of revamp the roster around him, because a Giannis deal not only requires time and it requires thought, it requires the off season, like you said, they're not doing it mid season. It requires suitors, which obviously everyone wants. Ooh. Even the mic can't believe what I'm saying. There's so many teams that want. There'll be a ton of suitors that want to get Giannis, but dude, like they also have to. There's only a certain amount of teams that can actually afford to make a trade.
I mean, look, you're gonna have to.
He's a huge asset.
You're gonna have to give up most of your depth, a lot of a ton of draft picks. You gotta have the money to take on the contract.
Right? Yeah, like the Suns,
the money work.
The Nets did the to court a superstar in the NBA. It takes a long time.
Yeah, and also you see, what the Brooklyn Nets try to do blew up in their face. You see what the Lakers did post 2020 blew up in their face. Phoenix hasn't worked yet. 9-3 so far, but obviously we're good. We're good enough to our standards last year. We're still early on this year.
Yeah.
So if I'm another team, so I'm sure somebody would do it, but like all of our teams might be like, you know what? I saw what happened in Brooklyn and Phoenix. I'm not sure if I want to do that as much as I think Giannis is an insanely talented player.
I think that's the volatility. We'll get to your disappointing team, and then we can kind of wrap up this segment. I think that's the volatility of superstars, right? They could, that's kind of the player. That's the player empowerment movement that LeBron. Well, I wouldn't say LeBron started because I would really trace it back to. If you really want to trace it back, you could say like the Barkley, Drexler, Rockets, but I would really say the big three of KG. We're talking about 2008. The big three in Boston, I think. They really kind of started that narrative or that kind of trend, and I think it's good for the league because it's really exciting, right? Stars in new markets, but at the same time, I don't really want to see. From a personal standpoint, I don't want to see a small market team like Milwaukee lose him because, something he also talks about is he's very private. Right, he cares about his family, and he wants to. All his family lives with him. Big house in Milwaukee, and he just enjoys. Like I remember talking about he was talking about in the book, like just walking down the street in Milwaukee, and people recognize him, but they're nice enough to be like, this is a famous guy. I don't want to bombard him. They might like wave at him a little bit, but he can kind of do his own thing. That's also an element. Where's Giannis going to want to go? I don't think he wants to play in a big market. I really don't, because he talks about Milwaukee being like a second home from him. This is all he's known when he got to America was
That's a good point.
Milwaukee.
And then it's like, so now you rule out the Knicks, you rule out the Celtics, you rule out the Clippers, Lakers, and at that point, who else is really, who really else is going after him?
I mean, they're all big markets. I mean, I want to say the Warriors. It's never gonna happen. That's my dream of mine.
If we're sticking to big market, that's a big enough market.
That's San Francisco. So I mean, I think Giannis is just better off just staying and trusting the front office to get a plan around him. I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to be competitive with a top 20 player of all time in his prime. It's really hard not to. So I think if I'm Giannis, I'm staying, but you can't be anything but disappointed with that start, right?
Absolutely. And my team is a couple different directions I could go here. There's been a bunch of teams that have been surprising, good and bad. I'll say, the Sixers. Look, obviously talent they should be 2-9, but Embiid's played one game. Paul George only played a few games. Like you said, that's never going to work. I will say that I've been a little bit surprised how off the Timberwolves have looked. Look, the trade to send Towns to the New York Knicks, you get back Julius Randle and DiVincenzo. I've never been a huge Towns guy, but when the Knicks guy was like, you know what, they did need a big man, so I thought it was a good move for the Knicks. He's probably a better fit than Julius Randle, although I did like him more than most. And then, but I was a little confused from a Timberwolves standpoint. I was like, Towns has been there for 9 years. I get you have him and Gobert, plus you have Naz Reid. You don't need all three. Maybe I could see why you would move Karl-Anthony Towns, Gobert. I don't know how you're going to, in the heck you're going to be able to move that contract. Naz Reid, I don't think you'd want to move.
No,
So Towns will be the odd man out. You
Yeah.
think, or maybe you go and get whatever you think you need, whether you think it's a better point guard or whatever you think you need. Maybe a better number 2 option next to Anthony Edwards. You think fits a little better.
Mm-hmm.
But for Randall and Dante DiVincenzo, I was like, that's a little confusing. Like Randall, look, he's in the regular season for the most part. He has been a very good scorer that can shoot the ball decently, but obviously doesn't play a whole lot of defense.
Yeah.
The last 2 years he's been a little injury prone. Obviously in the postseason to this point has not performed. And DiVincenzo, all right, he's a fine like 3-point shooter off the bench, but he's not a star by any means.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we got back for Towns. But he's looked really off in Minnesota. Right, he's had 1 or 2 very good games, as he has. But like even the last couple of years with the Knicks, you could argue he wasn't the best fit for that team. And he's, for the most part in the regular season, at least the last like 2 years when he's been healthy, he's looked really good. He's been getting you 25-8, 10 points, and and was a big. Obviously, once the playoffs come, the wheels fell off. But when it comes to the reasons they were in the playoffs, outside Brunson, Tibbs, and maybe just the culture they have there, it was Julius Randle. But I get the fit was already a little wonky, but it's looked even worse than I thought. And that's a team that obviously, look, they're at 6-6. And the West is so much better than the East. If they were in the East, they would be the 4 seed. They are currently the 11 seed in the West. To put that in perspective, obviously, like you said, the East will kind of course correct. I do think the Knicks will click eventually. Indiana, I think, will play a little bit better. Philly will play a little bit better. In the West, I think a couple teams will probably come back down to earth. We'll see what happens at Golden State. Phoenix will come back down. Even Houston, the Lakers. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm sure Minnesota will play a little better as well. We're very early on. But I've been a little surprised how wonky they've looked so far.
That's true. I mean, I to your point, I kind of just really quick because I've been yapping a little bit too much. But Nas Reed and Cat, I understood the move. Maybe not Randall. Like, I mean, you want to get Randall. I think just is a pure like value thing.
Yeah.
Whether he's gonna end up being shipped off in some other point in time, or he's just we're shipping out a all-star level, one of the best shooting big men of all time, if not the best. We need some, equivalent trade value back, and I would say DiVincenzo and Randall is kind of equivalent. I just don't. Yeah, I agree with the fit concerns. I mean, the reason I think they did it was because there's a little bit of multiplicity with what Nas Reed and Cat do. Not saying Nas Reed is like Cat level shooting, right? But you saw what he did in the playoffs, how invaluable he was, how like valuable he was to the team, and doing again similar things Cat does, but not being as of a minus of a defender. The Gobert thing's tough, but I mean, it can work. I think it can work. I mean, he gets a lot of crap, but I'm not.
Mhm.
I am far from. You mentioned you're like a Draymond, like not his biggest fan. I am far from a Rudy Gobert fan. Whenever he gets posted,
Same here.
Whenever it gets posted, it's pretty funny. But he is a a very great rim protector.
Yes.
Right, and no matter how much the NBA changes, you still need that in this league. It's very paramount. It's very vital, and he gives that to them. And there's pressure. There's not really much pressure on him. We talked about with the Warriors, they don't really have a second scorer. With Anthony Edwards and how much he's ascending still, and you look at their roster with DiVincenzo now, Randall, you still have Mike Conley, right? Mike Conley still point guard. Mike Conley's I swear he's 60 years old.
I know, dude.
There's not as much pressure on Randall, I don't think. Just because, I think this Timberwolves team's gonna be fine. I worry about their ceiling a little bit, just because, let's do the same thing we did with the Bucks, right? Okay, so let's just assume they're at least making it to the second round, right? I would imagine they're going to be a top, even if they're a 6 seed. I think they could beat a 3 seed Suns team again, because I got to see more from the Suns. We saw what happened last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so the teams I think. And you can check me on this, that are going to be in the second round as we stand right now: the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, think the Mavs make it back again. Yeah, I think the Mavs make it back again. So that's 4, right?
That's probably what I would have. Yeah.
Wait, am I trying to?
Yeah, that's 4.
No, I'm just. Well, yeah, because that would be a repeat. Do you think Golden State is there yet or no?
I do not, but I'll say this. Going into the year, I thought they were like playing exit again. I'm this point, I've gained enough confidence that they can be like a 6 seed.
We could do the same. We could do the same exercise, but just put them in like as 5th hypothetical team. Okay, so yeah, let's do the same exercise again. So they play in the second round. Let's say their opponent's the Warriors. Who are you picking?
Right now?
Yeah. Well, right now, but projecting into like where are they going to be by I guess the postseason. That's only fair if we're doing that.
I would probably say Minnesota.
Okay, so I agree. Dallas.
Minnesota, just because Dallas, I'm not sure if they have enough besides outside of Luka.
Denver. Phoenix.
Right now, I would probably say Phoenix. That will probably change eventually.
And then the Thunder.
Yeah,
so that puts them at like around like the 3rd, 4th best team in the conference, which I think right now would be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, which is still, we've seen teams that really I didn't think the Mavs really had much of a shot to get to the finals. No, yeah, they did it.
I thought Minnesota was going to beat them for sure in the conference finals.
Even the Lakers the year before, made a surprise run to the West Finals. I think, and then before them, Dallas. So yeah. I think the Timberwolves, I think, are going to be fine. They do have to pick it up a little bit because there's such a. I mean, this West is so good. I mean, last year the Warriors were like the 10 seed or the 9 seed, and they were 44 and 38. They would have been like the. Let's check this right now because I think off the top of my head they would have been a top 4 seed in the league. They were the 10 seed at 46 and 36. I was giving them too much credit, or not enough credit, and they would have been the 8th seed, which is actually kind of crazy because I didn't think the East was that good last year from a just record standpoint.
Yeah.
But they would have had a second play-in game.
Right.
My point still stands. The East is back to being. Kind of top heavy, which is I think it's always been. Sans 2019, I think it's always been top heavy. Like, you had the occasional 2021. We thought, maybe the process could. That's not happening anymore. Yeah, that could be an entire episode to talk about the process, what happened with it. But yeah, I think Timberwolves will be fine.
Yeah, for sure. Let's shift gears now to talk some college football. Yeah. College football playoff is taking shape. We are towards the very back end of the college football regular season. Obviously, we have a new 12-team playoff. How it works, we have the Power, I guess, 14, because the Pac-12 is like non-existent. It might be coming back in 2026. All of a sudden, they're just trying to just gather a bunch of teams. Yeah. But for now, it's the Pac-2, I guess, right now, with Washington State and Oregon State. So it's the obviously whoever wins the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and ACC, and then the best group of 5 team will get the first 5 bids, the next best 7 at-large bids, and then that first round, the first 4 seeds get a bye, 5 versus 12, 6 versus 11, and so forth. You move on to the next round, and so on and so forth. That's how it works this year. This is what we have right now. We had the second ever 12-team college football playoff that came out a day or two ago. We had Oregon at number 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Indiana 5, BYU 6, Tennessee 7, Notre Dame 8, Miami 9, Alabama 10, Ole Miss 11, Georgia 12, and then right there on the outside looking in, this is 13 through 20, is Boise State, SMU, Texas A&M, Kansas State, Colorado, Washington State, Louisville, Clemson, and 21 through 25 is South Carolina, LSU, Missouri, Army, and Tulane. So, let me ask you this: is there a team that's currently in the top 12 that you think you would consider, I guess, a big pretender?
So, like someone that's either incredibly overrated, like in terms of where they're ranked, or someone that, based on their resume, is fairly ranked based on the criteria of the committee, but I don't think is good. Is this kind of your question?
Probably more.
Second one.
More so the second thing you said, yeah.
Okay, so that they're too highly ranked, right?
Huh?
They're too highly ranked, right? That was what you.
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of
okay.
both things. To be honest.
Okay, so, I want to say Notre Dame. That's a layup, but I mean,
I mean, if it's true, it's true.
But I mean, 8 seems kind of fair for them because of how, I mean, like they're one of the worst one-loss teams in the country. That kind of makes sense. I would say Penn State.
Yeah.
So, BYU also, they're a fun story, but I look at who their resume. I mean, you want to pull this up real quick?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily impressive. I mean, there's going to be the Big 12 itself. There was heading into it. There was 4 or 5 people that could win the conference. It was kind of like we've kind of put it up in arms. We weren't really sure. Getting all tongue tied. I mean, let's look at their schedule, right? So they have. I would say they actually do have a quality win. They did beat SMU, who is where are they ranked in?
Right now 14, they're ranked 14th,
right?
yeah.
So that's a top 15 win. They were able to beat, I think that's their best win.
Yeah.
Their next best was a 20th ranked Kansas State team, and they don't have another ranked opponent on their resume right now, and they don't face another one because they faced they just beat the Utes very closely. Probably should have lost that game. Then they play Kansas, Arizona State, Houston. Then they have the Big 12 championship game. They're pretty much in at this point to get to
the Big 10 title game. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So, I would say in terms of the biggest like paper tiger, again, a good story, right? 9-0 team, BYU. I don't think they've been. I think I might be wrong. So if I don't want to make any BYU fan annoyed. But,
you want to piss off any of the Mormons over there?
No. But since the Zach Wilson era, I don't think they've had as good of a team since.
No.
And look, it's exciting. They're the 6th ranked team in the country, but I mean, if they were to match up against number 11 Ole Miss right now, who do you think would be favored, and who do you think you expect to win?
Probably Ole Miss.
Right. So I mean, I like the playoff format. Like I was very I was originally very pro expansion. Now I'm very anti expansion.
Yeah.
Cat's out of the bag. You've opened Pandora's box. You can't really change it at this point. They make more money. They're not going to go back. If anything, it's going to get bigger, like the NCAA tournament for basketball still does. But like I'm all for more kind of. I'm all for parity, but this format to me gives the kind of what's the word, like the kind of like, oh my god, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I'm trying to forget. Like it's like you think it's there, but it's actually not.
Oh yeah.
Like not the influence.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the it gives off like the idea of parody, but it's not really. It's not really the case. Again, there's a word that I'm totally blanking on right now, but I would say BYU. Tennessee, we'll see. Right next week, this week is pretty much.
Yeah, that's a big.
I would say, given the state of the SEC, and I'm gonna give it back to you guys. I've been again yapping way too much. I would say with the state of the SEC, with as many potentially 2-loss teams as you're gonna get, you have Alabama, you have Georgia. If Tennessee loses, Tennessee. Ole Miss is one of the highest 2-loss teams in the country. LSU's a 3-loss team now. The highest ranked team in the SEC is Texas. And they obviously have a loss to Georgia, and I could see them losing another game because they do play Texas A&M at the end of the year, and then they would play, if they were to win out, the SEC championship game, which I also have issues with because as a Georgia fan, again, if someone's like seeing like my teams, they're like... Like, what the? There's a story to that, too. Did you know that?
We went over all your teams besides college football last night, just off camera, so I did not know you were a Georgia football fan. Wow.
Yeah, it's been since, pretty much NCAA 07. That's how old I am. That's kind of when it started. Yeah, the Matt Stafford days. That's when I was kind of brought into it. But, no, I mean, Georgia last year, right? We were undefeated, and our reward for being undefeated and the best in the East was you play extra game that like a Notre Dame doesn't need to, and you get eliminated. You have to play a playoff quarterfinal. Remember, this was the year before when we were still in the 4-team format, and you get punished for having to play that game because you're good. If we were 11-1 and we were I guess in a normal year. Last year was not a normal year in terms of how many teams were vying for playoff spots, but there's going to be probably 5 2-loss teams, and there's a wacky tiebreaker scenario that I hope does not happen. But to answer your question, there's going to be so many. I don't know if I'm all for this playoff expansion, just because, I mean, there's the reseeding issue where the teams don't reseed after the first round. So if you're the 1 seed, for example, you have to play a harder opponent pretty much every time. You're going to play a harder opponent in the second round in that quarterfinal matchup than the 6 or 5 seed would, or the 2 seed for that matter as well. So there's pathways for, hey, if you get a lower seed, like Georgia, right? If they went out, especially if they beat number 7 Tennessee, I don't know if we would. We don't know how the tiebreakers would work, but I'm under the assumption that we wouldn't be in the SEC championship game still, because Alabama has a tiebreaker over us, and I don't foresee them losing the rest of the way.
Right.
Then, like, you're probably in as like an 8-9 seed. And you avoid having to play like a harder game than if you were the 1 seed.
That's a good point.
So there's issues with that. But to answer your question, I would say BYU and probably Penn State, just because, Penn State, the only team they kind of, how Penn State is judged is similar to how Ryan Day is judged. That, for that matter, James Franklin. In the sense of there's so much talk about him not being able to beat hard teams, and he can't. You can't beat teams in the top 5 and yada, yada, yada. I would say he is the most properly... I've heard this. This is not a me take. I've heard this take, and I agree with this take. I've heard a lot of people say, if you don't know who it is, do you watch Josh Pates? Do you know of him? No. So, if you should. He's a great college football analyst. He says that James Franklin is the most properly rated head coach in America because he is paid, I think, like as a top 10, 12 head coach, I want to say. And he is pretty much playing all the teams he's favored to beat, he beats. And then all the teams he's favored to lose against, your Ohio States and your Michigans when they're not 5-5 and rebuilding, he loses to. And it's like, oh my God, he can't beat the teams he's not favored against. Well, that's the definition of being properly rated. Just like the Notre Dame situation where, I get angry at them. Why are they in the playoff conversation? But I don't know. I think 8 is properly rated for them. Right now, they're a good team, but they're probably not a great team. That's kind of the case for Penn State. And when I see that, I think 4 is a little bit too rich. I'd have if Indiana and Penn State played right now, which they're not going to because Indiana has a very strange schedule, unless they meet in the Big Ten championship, which I don't think is going to happen because Ohio State would have to lose because they had the tiebreaker over Penn State. I'd pick Indiana win right now.
I would too.
I think they're getting the most disrespect in the country. Again, I understand the resume component. They don't have a great resume.
But they've been very good.
But, I would say those 2. And that's probably it. I mean, these rankings are so wonky.
I know.
I don't know about you, but my I miss the 4-team playoff. Because every game, like Georgia would be pretty much done for at this point. 2 losses unless you're an Auburn team from 2017 where you have like a 2 number 1 wins back to back in that November, and they had that opportunity to be the first 2-loss team. There's been times where it's almost happened, but things have to align perfectly, right? So
like Alabama would be done, Ole Miss will be done, Georgia will be done.
And that's another thing is that the conference realignment has coincided with, and conference expansion has coincided with the playoff expansion. So you have an SEC that is stacked in terms of just how many teams there are, and you end up with Georgia's schedule where they have the toughest schedule in America, and you're sitting there at 2 losses, and all Georgia fans are crying and oh my God, we're not Georgia anymore, we're frauds, blah blah blah. Kirby Smart's a bozo, not that language, I guess, but I think heading to the season, I was like, yeah, this is probably a 2-loss schedule. Not to say that we're bad, but like when you have to play Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, I'm probably missing someone. And then the SEC championship, if you make it, like, yeah, it's probably 2 losses. Like,
Yeah.
These are college kids, and you have back to back to back to back, like, tough opponents on the schedule. So I've done too much yapping. Those 2 teams are kind of like the paper tigers, if you will, I think.
Yeah, Penn State, I mean, it's hard to get around. Just they kind of do this every year. I mean, there are teams like Ohio State too. I mean, it's hard. I mean, that's fine. Do I trust them to win a big game still? No. I mean, we've seen this over and over again. But like two, like I mean, maybe if you wanted to say Tech is over them, maybe you can make an argument. But I think 2 is pretty fair for kind of like Notre Dame. Do I believe in them now? But it's hard to argue that they should not be the 8th team in the country. That's pretty fair. And Boise State's an interesting team. Obviously, Ashton Genty has just
Oh my God,
has been going crazy. If I had to guess, they're probably going to get in because they're the best group of 5, right?
Yeah. So I mean, as it stands right now, it's them and SMU kind of locked into that. Excuse me,
because I don't think because they haven't played this year, have they?
Yeah, look at me being all research and everything. Yeah. So Boise State's only loss was the number 1 team in the country by 3 points.
Yeah. So they're
when we
the rest of their schedule they get is San Jose State, Wyoming, and Oregon State.
Yeah. So they're playing the Mountain West schedule, right? So
yeah.
I mean, they would play in the conference championship. It looks like they would play. Excuse me.
And like SMU schedule the rest of the way is Boston College. Holy heck, they're gonna beat the brakes off of them. And then Virginia and Cal. They're probably gonna beat the brakes off of all 3 of those teams.
Oh my God, I'm an idiot. I for some reason
I think SMU is in the ACC, right?
Yeah. See, that's what I
the next group of 5 teams.
Look at me being so researched. I should know better. No, yeah, that's forgive me. That like the ACC.
The next group of 5 would probably Army.
The
next best group of 5 that would.
Yeah, see, like I associated with SMU as a Group of 5 team for so long because they're in the
I know,
right, and now they're an ACC. I'm just like, ugh.
So like, is there Boise State unless they completely collapse? They're gonna probably like what the 5 seed?
Yeah, you're right. Army, Tulane, as 24 and 25.
Those are the only Group of 5 that have a shot of even a snowball's chance in heck.
Well, actually. Is Washington State considered a Group of 5? No, right?
They're considered in the Pac. I mean, the Pac-12 has 2 teams.
Because they're ranked 18th, and they're playing a Mountain West schedule, and I don't know how that's gonna even I don't even know how that's gonna even shake out. So that'll be fun to watch. Keep in mind though, Washington State's only loss is to Boise State, and I got plastered. So, yeah, it looks like Boise State's pretty much there. Like I can't see them.
And the 3 teams they have left are teams they should beat the brakes off of.
Yeah. I mean, once they get into the playoff, that's a different discussion. But
right, yeah.
In there, yeah, I think so. But that's the word I was looking for. It's the illusion of, like, parity, right? So, like, Boise State gets in. You're like, oh, my God, the Group of 5 team into playoff. It's not as impactful as when Cincinnati did it because if you expand, you have 4 lottery tickets, right? If you expand the sample size for threefold, right? You triple the sample size to 12, and you say, now there's 12 lottery tickets in existence. You have 1 of them. So that devalues obviously the lottery ticket. It's not worth as much because there's now 11 teams that have that lottery ticket, and if one's guaranteed to go to a Group of 5 team, it's not as special anymore because And I don't know if we're ever going to get to this point, but it wouldn't totally shock me if you have, like, opt-outs of playoff games. And you might be like, whoa, that's way too much. There's no way. Well, I mean, when you have, like, let's say, this is a year where you
it's possible. I mean,
look, this is a year where you have, like, a Group of 5 team that is, I could see being competitive, maybe even winning a game or 2, right, in the playoff. If there's a Group of 5 team that,
has, like, no shot in heck to beat...
Yeah, let's say
the 5 seed.
Let's say respect our troops, right? But let's just say Army is take Boise State out of it. They're the highest Group of 5 team,
and they get the 5.
Yeah, we're gonna get smashed. And I don't think
like
Army would do this, but like I could see teams that are like 21 points, underdogs.
Yeah, let's say
There's kids that are high.
like if Tulane one of these years got the 5 seed and they were playing like a team like Georgia, there's no way they were going. They're gonna get destroyed by the Bulldogs, I would think, right?
Right. Yeah.
So like you think, all right, maybe
Which goes back to the whole like, is the 12 seed better than the 2? Like, would you rather place? There needs to be they need to reseed this.
Yeah, I like that that they're going to 12. I mean, look, obviously in past years, whoever was the 5 seed was always like, oh no, I wanted to get in. Obviously, now whoever's the 13 seed is going to do the same thing. But at the same time, everyone's like, oh well, it's just, like a house is always gonna. He's always gonna get in. When Clemson was at the top, they were always getting in. Georgia or Alabama was always getting in, and now you're basically guaranteeing those team spots. It's pretty hard.
Which is funny because both of them might not make it.
Exactly, they might not. But it's honestly going into the year, you thought it's pretty hard for Alabama not to get in, and for Georgia to not get in, and for Ohio State to not get in. Because like you said, with 4 teams, if you have 2 losses, the season's over. Yeah. Now, with 2 losses, you can get in.
Shoot, I mean, it wouldn't shock me. I would be mildly shocked, but I mean, maybe even eventually a 3-loss SEC team.
I think a 3-loss team eventually will get in. Maybe as like the 12th team.
Which is gross, but like
it makes me want to throw up. But there will probably be a year where like the town overall isn't that strong. It's pretty strong this year. Yeah. There might be a 3-loss team that gets in. I can't see it being this year, but if this is what they keep sticking with for the next bunch of years, I'm sure a 3-loss team will sneak in as the 12.
Right, yeah.
Welcome back. We're going to do some game picks, and then we're going to close this thing out. Let's start with Thursday Night Football, Commanders at the Eagles.
So, right. Strange game in the sense of going into the season, you didn't think this was going to be an NFC East division, essentially, decider like that it is right now. I think for me, just kind of loosely thinking about this, I saw the spread was minus. Eagles are favored by 4 at home, which kind of makes sense because I would say I just think the Commanders are a little bit ahead of schedule, right? I think they're a little bit. Excuse me. Even in the best case scenario for the Commanders, this was kind of like even exceeds those where you have Jaden Daniels playing at such a high level. But there's holes. It kind of makes you forget there's a lot of holes on this defense, right? So Dan Quinn, obviously, you knew who's going to raise the floor of this defense, but there's still, that pass rush has not gotten going. The Lattimore acquisition makes your secondary better, but it's not like this elite group. Mm-hmm. They can be had in the passing game, and I just, as good as the Commanders have been, I think they're going to run into some issues with not really having a second reliable playmaker, sans next to McLaurin. I think for Washington, it is one of those seasons where it's kind of like the Texans season last year, where it's like, hey, this is house money. We don't know like how far this is going to go, but hey, if we can make the playoffs, and Jaden Daniels looks sensational, like we're getting there. But where's your Tank Dell? Where's your going to be would have been Stephon Diggs next to their number 1. Dynemi Brown has been okay. Yeah. He's not been kind of what they thought he would be. Luke McCaffrey's obviously still learning the position. I don't think he's going to be a 2.
No.
I obviously shipped out Jahan Dotson a while ago. That's kind of a miss there. So I would say the Eagles have been playing a lot better. Jalen Hurts, obviously, I was at the Bucs-Eagles game, I think like a month ago. And, man, Jalen Hurts looked lost without Jalen Brown, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. He just, obviously, I'm not going to totally criticize the guy because, of course, when you have those 2 weapons, quarterbacking is a lot easier. But, once those acquisitions got back, once those guys got back, he has that connection, that chemistry with them to just, hey, like, A.J. Brown, I'm going to trust you on this goal ball, and you're going to make a 50-50 be a 70-30. Yeah. Devontae Smith, same thing, right? So I think they're playing a lot better. I think the Eagles, just their roster is more talented. I mean, what a job Howie Roseman does, and as much as I don't, think he's kind of, I don't really like the head coach very much. Why am I blanking on his name?
For the Eagles, Nick Sirianni.
Yeah,
he's not good.
Yeah, I don't really rate him. but the roster they have, it's the story of the Eagles. I think the last year and a half has been talent superseding kind of coaching in a sense. And I just think this Eagles team is way too talented. I'm going to take the Eagles, and I think +4 is, I think 4 points is a lot to lay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd even go like, I think the Eagles at home are gonna win and cover. But it should still be an exciting game. For sure, I'm not predicting a double-digit win here.
Yeah, I'm also gonna take Philly. Like I said, Washington. Look, I think they'll get into the playoffs, but like you said, this is still a young team. There really was no expectations this year. There's a reason they really haven't beat anybody super good so far this year. They'll probably lose in the first round, but that's okay. I'm not super sold on Philadelphia either. Sirianni and just a couple other things. The secondary there isn't great, but I think the Eagles, just being more experienced and just a little more talented, I think will push through against the Commanders. 1 o'clock. First game on the slate is Packers at the Bears.
So two teams that are, well, I would say the Packers aren't necessarily ascending, but the bye week was definitely very, very well-timed.
Yes.
Jordan Love's been struggling with a groin injury, and he's not been himself the last couple weeks. And
No.
I think the groin, he's been limited. I think he's now at full participant practice. He's going to be playing, so that's great. And I think he should be a lot healthier. The run game with Josh Jacobs has been getting going. They have so many weapons. They're so diverse in the way they can attack you with Reed, Kraft, Watson when he's healthy, Romeo Doubs when he's not getting in trouble. So they're certainly the team, I think. And it's weird to really expect what to expect with the Packers, I will say, because they're 6-3. They've kind of beaten the teams they should beat. They've kind of lost games they probably should have. Like, I mean, going into 2 weeks ago with a hobble, Jordan Love at home against a Lions team, I think is just playing the best team in the league, in my opinion. I think the way they play, even without Hutchinson, is just infectious. I did not expect them to win that game. I also didn't expect it to be that particularly close, and it wasn't. However, their opponent in Chicago, I mean, it's crazy to see the narrative and the climate, the temperature on the Bears 3 weeks ago after the London win, where Caleb Williams was incrementally improving, and he was looking like, okay, so, he's not maybe playing the best in his class, right? That's obviously Jaden Daniels, but you could see he's getting somewhere, and there's so much talk about him going into one of the best situations a rookie has ever gone into with that trio of receivers and DeAndre Swift. Your thoughts on him, whether he's actually talented or not, but he's a decent back, and he's played decently well. That defense is very good and still remains very good, despite many people calling for Eberflus's head. And I think he probably will get fired, but it's funny because he's still doing a job in the sense of that he's a defensive mind and his defense has been playing good.
Yeah.
But that is the drawback with defensive minds, is that your offense can very much sputter without the right offensive, coordinator.
Yeah.
So now they're sitting at 4-5, lost 3 straight. I'm gonna take the Packers in this. I see just a very sharp decline in the Bears. I can't really trust them, even though their defense is good. I can't trust their offense. I'm gonna quickly look up the spread on this game. I want to see. What do you think? Are we talking touchdown or lower? I think
I'll say it should be. I'll say it's maybe 6.
Let me go to. Yeah, sorry, I'm doing a little bit on the fly here, but let me go to.
If I had to guess, it's probably like -6, something like that.
Right. I mean, Chicago is home, so that will at least bring it down a little bit. But yeah, -5.
Okay.
The total is 40.5. I would expect it to go under. I don't think that we're gonna get. I expect the Packers to hold their end. I don't expect the Bears to. Yeah. I would say -5. I would say Packers and Packers to cover, just because of how poor the Bears have been.
Yeah, that offense has been dreadful. Caleb Williams was really struggling. I wasn't high on him anyway coming into the year, so I'll take the Packers as well.
All right, so Jaguars, Lions, and I want you to guess this spread, because this is Detroit at home. This is Mac Jones, Jaguars. A competitive 2-8 Jaguars team, but certainly not a Jaguars team that many expect to compete.
Is it -9?
No, higher.
11?
Higher.
14?
Yeah.
Wow! Lions are 2 tutty favorites. I mean, this game, I don't expect this game to be close. Lions, to me, the most complete team in the league. they're obviously rolling. You had 5 picks against the Texans, and you still found a way to win the game. Obviously, the culture there has completely shifted. The Lions should win, no problem.
So, I mean, if we're talking from a pure, I think the more fun thing is to pick or talk about the betting implications of this game more than the actual outcome, because I think we all know the Lions are going to win. Will the Jaguars backdoor this spread? 14's way too much for an NFL game. I'm sorry. This is a
big number.
This is a college spread. If we're being serious, this is not an NFL spread.
That's a big number in the NFL.
They're at home. I mean, look, the Lions are capable of doing it, and the funny thing is it makes sense in the standpoint of when they're up, they do not stop. Like, they find
Dan
ways.
Campbell will fake punt up 20.
Yeah, they find ways to humiliate their opponents. So that's a big spread. I would go with it. I think as big as that spread is,
just because, I mean, look, this is not going to be that close to the game, and also, like you said,
and it's also like
Dan Campbell will not stop.
And like you mentioned, Jared Goff did not play well, so
No.
I don't think the feeling in that building is like, hey, we can rest on our laurels. This is not going to be a trap game for them, because I don't think they played particularly well last week.
No.
They still found a way to win, but
Against a much better team.
they didn't play that well. So we both have the Lions. Do you have them covering too?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would. We've seen weird things, right?
Of course, we've seen crazy things have happened.
I remember sitting here and I was like, the Steelers are going to be terrible this year, and now
how about that is beyond my comprehension.
What do I really know? I don't know.
what any of us really know.
Yeah.
Next game is Raiders at Dolphins.
Do you want to take this first?
Sure. Yikes. This is not a great game. I'll take Miami. Both teams aren't great. Miami, obviously, you didn't have Tua for a while. Mike McDaniel, I could see him being on the hot seat. But that Raiders team is just a mess, so I'll take Miami.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Miami too, mostly just because they're the most desperate team here. The Raiders are obviously on to their third, fourth starting quarterback. I don't even know anymore.
Minshew's starting to keep going.
He's
they were
back
Minshew
again.
and O'Connell.
Then Ritter, and now back to Minshew. It's a mess. The only thing about that team that I like is obviously Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
He's good, if people didn't realize that. But yeah, Dolphins need this game. I mean, if they have any chance of making the playoffs. Though, I mean, look, the AFC is not like the NFC in the standpoint of the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams, like those teams in the wild cards contention. I think the Broncos are 5-4 in that spot.
They're 5-5, and they're the last team in.
A win here, they have a chance, right? Like, I think if you look at their schedule, yeah, sure, they'd have to probably go, I'd say 7-1 the rest of the way, but their schedule isn't that bad. I mean, no more Bills games, right? We're done with those.
Yeah.
I think they have.
They have 3 games with the Jets and Patriots.
Yeah,
which
I was
helps.
gonna say so Raiders, Patriots, Packers, Jets, Texans, 49ers, Browns, Jets. So games I expect them to win. I would say twice. The Patriots games, they play the Jets game, they play the Browns, and the Raiders. So that's 5 wins right there. They could shoot 8 wins. You would then have to win 2 of on the road against the Packers, on the road against the Texans, and at home against the 49ers. I think they could do it. I don't think the Texans are a good team. They'll win their division, but they have problems.
Yeah.
Their pass protection has been horrid.
Yikes.
CJ Stroud has been playing a lot of scramble drill ball, and obviously Nico Collins getting him back will help, but there's certainly been that interception kind of regression to the mean. I don't think he was going to stay at 2 interceptions per whatever how many throws he threw. The 49ers at home is tough. Just stylistically, I think they're going to kind of get pushed around. But and the Packers have been kind of this up and down yo-yo team that I don't know what really to expect. They could get in there. So long story short is I think this game really means a lot to Miami.
Yeah.
Obviously, they'll win. I don't think they will cover though, just because they haven't really had that explosive element with them.
What's the line?
7.
No, I don't see them covering now.
Yeah, I mean, as bad as the Raiders are, I don't really, and their defense is, I don't really think, they haven't really gotten Tyreek Hill going. They haven't really gotten the deep passing game going. It's more been that short into intermediate game with an A-Chain playing like kind of almost light Alvin Kamara in his prime, and utilizing those backs and the tight ends more so than the wide receivers. So I don't expect them to cover, but I expect them to win.
I do as well. Next game is Rams at the Patriots.
I'll take this first. So this is tough. The Patriots have been playing well.
They've been much more competitive with Drake May.
Yeah, on it's easy to just take the favorite in the Rams, but the Patriots have been playing quite well. It's at home, and the Rams are -5, which is strange. I wouldn't. That's a big number. I am gonna go Rams, but I'm gonna say the Patriots are gonna cover that spread. Like I think it's gonna be a one possession game.
Yeah,
because the Patriots have been playing a lot better. That defense has certainly looked like a Bill Belichick inspired, crafted Patriots defense.
Yeah,
and Drake May has given some dynamicism to the offense, and he's looked. He's had his warts, he's had his ugly moments, but he's definitely, you like where it's heading with them. So I'll give, and it's best case scenario for New England, right? Lose, you look competitive. Drake May plays well.
Yeah,
better draft pick. So I'm gonna go Rams in this game.
Yeah, I think the Rams sneak by. I could see this being like a game it's neck and neck. I could see the Patriots having a couple of leads. Maybe the Rams score a late touchdown, and the Patriots, they don't convert on fourth down when they're on fourth down. Maybe middle of the field. Maybe the Rams go down and get a field goal late, something like that. But I think the Rams squeak by. But -5. This game will be closer than that.
All right, so the next game is, I think we're going in the correct order, right? It's Saints-Browns for you?
Yes. Oh, my goodness gracious.
You want to take this game first?
Sure. Holy moly. This is a interesting game. By interesting, I mean god-awful. I will take the Browns. Both teams are really bad. They're both done. Cleveland, that situation is just really bad. The line's hurt. Obviously with the quarterbacks and just ruining their season. The Saints, their whole receiving core is hurt. They just fired their coach. So they picked up a surprise win with the Falcons last week. That team is just old and expensive, and just they're also in a bad situation. But I'll say Cleveland squeaks by.
It's a game that matters a lot for draft position. This is the Big Tank Bowl, if I've ever seen one. Right? But it's tough because the Saints have had their 1 week, most predictable, 1 week bounce I ever saw with the coach last week against a division opponent in Atlanta. I expected them to be competitive and maybe even win that game, which they ultimately did, right?
Yeah.
The Browns are a team that is just so disappointing. Their roster talent is pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, so the quarterback, they actually have a solid squad,
especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is such a hard read. The game's essentially a coin flip. It's New Orleans favored by 1 at home. The total is 44.5. I'd be smashing the under. This game, this smells to me like a game that's 20-17.
Yeah, and
it's a game no one really wants to win. I could be wrong.
I could see it being even. I could see it being 13-9 or something.
I don't think. Well, Jameis and Derek Carr will offer some interesting, inviting balls to be intercepted that will give the other offense field position. I think just purely off that. I don't even know. I'm gonna take the Browns. I think. I want to take the Browns just because I think purely off of the standpoint of Derek Carr. Derek Carr is one of the most timid quarterbacks in the league. Especially with no Rashid Shaheed, he's not gonna push the envelope down the field, and if he is, he's trying to almost get Chris Olave's head taken off. And then the Browns, at least with Jameis Winston, he'll get some volatility, but he will make occasional, very solid throws, if not compounded with an interception. So I'm just gonna go Browns purely off the vibes of the quarterback and how he plays, but I'm gonna go Browns.
Yeah, and then next game's a big game. Ravens at the Steelers.
So this is I love this rivalry. It's
one
of the best in the league. So it's in Pittsburgh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore's favored by 3, which is kind of interesting to me. I know Baltimore's incredible, but this is for the division, basically, right? I mean, have they
7-3 Ravens, 7-2
have
Steelers.
this? The Steelers and the Ravens play each other again, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of two matchups. Oof, I don't know, man. If this was on the road, honestly, I genuinely think with these two teams, it's the Ravens are the more talented team. They have the better quarterback. They have the better offense. And the Steelers have to win in a certain way. They have to play good defense. They have to shut down limit offensive production from the other team, and just hope like 2 or 3 moon balls from Russ kind of hit and win contested catches to get their offense going and open up the run game. That Steelers defense is great, but I do think the Ravens offense is just too good. I don't know if the Steelers can keep pace with the Ravens. Granted, that Ravens defense is not good either. No. Like, very not good. Can Russ and George Pickens exploit their weakness throwing the ball? I don't know. I'm going to go with the Ravens in a very close game. It wouldn't shock me if the Steelers win, but I'm going to go Ravens.
I'm also going to take the Ravens. This will probably be your typical, 27-24, 2017, 24-21 Ravens-Steelers game. I think the Ravens squeak by. I think I'm as shocked as the rest of us are that Pittsburgh Steelers are 7-2. The quarterback situation is obviously very weird. The running game isn't all that special. But here they are. Russ is, they've gotten enough out of the quarterback position and to get them to 7-2. But, I think the Ravens get by. They're obviously a very high-flying offense with Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry is still King Henry, so I think the Ravens get by. Next game is Vikings at Titans.
So I am going to go with the Vikings here, though it's worth noting that the Vikings have not played well the last 2 weeks, right? No. So specifically Sam Darnold. I think he's committed multiple turnovers over the last 2 weeks. He's kind of regressing a little bit back to the mean of Sam Darnold. He can make some great throws, has a great arm, a lot of traits that are found in great quarterbacks and good starters in the league. And I do think he'll land somewhere. Like, I think he's proven enough on his resume and his tape to present to other teams that he can be like the 20-something best quarterback in the league. Maybe even better than that. We've seen Geno Smith really find his footing and be like a plus starter in the league. Baker Mayfield obviously resurrected his career. I don't think it's going to be to that standpoint that those two guys have stayed, but he definitely is a starter in this league. I don't think the Titans, I think they're going back to Will Levis, right? Or they have already?
Yeah.
They did last week. It's fun with Calvin Ridley. It's kind of Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard. That's pretty much it. The Titans are also in a situation where I think it would behoove them to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're from the GM standpoint, I know the team's never going to do that, but I'm going to pick the Vikings, but again, I also am going to think it's going to be close just because a few Sam Darnold turnovers. I mean, last week we thought they were going to smash the Jaguars, and that game, they shouldn't have won that game. They didn't deserve to win that game, I don't think. It was more just the Jaguars finding another way to lose like they have all season.
Yep.
So give me the Vikings, but it's going to be close because I don't think the Vikings have been playing necessarily well. I could see the Titans winning this game, honestly. I'm not bold enough to do it, but
I'll also take Minnesota. I mean, Darnold, like you said, he's reverting back to the guy we saw in New York and Carolina. He kind of listens every year. He starts off very well. He started off even better than he normally does, and he came back down to earth a little bit later. But again, he's been the guy when he's on. He's actually a pretty damn good quarterback, and he's not quite the guy. He's the guy that looks like he's learned a lot from his what happened in New York, what happened in Carolina. But then as the season goes on, he starts to make a lot more mistakes. You're like, all right, maybe he's the same guy. And when he's off, he's really, really bad. He's guaranteed 2 turnovers, 3 turnovers every game. I think they get by the Titans. That team's really bad. Will Levis is really bad. The offense is very bad. So I could see the Titans putting a little bit of a scare into the Vikings. They're good defensively, and because Darnold's turnover prone, maybe I could see as we approach halftime, Titans maybe having a lead, but I think the Vikings will end up grinding this one out.
Mm-hmm.
Next game is Colts at the Jets.
So the Jets have disappointed me so much. I'm not even a Jets fan, and they've disappointed me.
They're brutal.
So 2 teams that are really descending for different reasons. So the Colts, you finally make the switch back to Anthony Richardson after 2 games of a Joe Flacco experiment that really never needed to happen because I don't understand it from this standpoint. I'm going to talk a little bit about not the game, so I apologize.
Don't be sorry.
Really quickly, so you draft Anthony Richardson as this. It is widely known he is not the finished product. He is a traits-based, the traits-based prospect.
Yeah.
One of the most physically gifted players in the NFL, the league's ever seen from the quarterback position. But he not had enough reps going back from high school to Florida. I mean, he's still younger than X amount. I think he's younger than at least a couple of the prospects in the NFL draft. He's, what is he, 21, right? Let me see.
He's very young.
Off my head. I want to off the top of my head. Yeah, 22. He turned 23 he's my age. He's your age.
Yeah.
And he's playing in the NFL, right? So as a quarterback, and he's I think he was a converted. I want to say he was a wide receiver. He
in high school, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't a quarterback until.
He's a big quarterback.
Right, he's physically gifted, but you knew to be patient with him.
He really should have sat last year. I know obviously he ended up getting hurt.
He did.
He got hurt, but he shouldn't have started week 1 to me.
No, I actually think it's the opposite.
Really?
I think with him it's a reps issue.
You think you think he just needs to play?
You compound the issue by sitting him. It's not like something with Jordan Love, for example. That's the whole classic well, look what they did with Rodgers. And Love had a lot of reps out of Utah State. He was a 4th-year guy, and he was an older he was 20, and then he started when he was 24.
Yeah, he just wasn't quite ready for the NFL at that time. So
and they also had Aaron Rodgers.
That helped a lot. It helped a lot.
He had 2 MVPs from Aaron Rodgers before he kind of, which is funny because he's playing him this week. But you knew the deal with Anthony Richardson. Why are you pulling him for 2 weeks when the locker room obviously doesn't feel the same way either? I mean, you say that Flacco gives you the best chance to win. I say I don't think the locker room buys into it. 1 and 2, you lost both games, and the Bills game I don't think you were going to win either way, but the Vikings game is very winnable, and you kind of just threw it away. And Joe Flacco did not play well that game. And that's the story on him, right? I mean, he's very much a we know what he did in Baltimore, but that's a decade plus now, right? So even last year when he led the Browns to that magical run, it was a good story, but he was throwing a lot of YOLO contested balls that Amari Cooper would win and Njoku would win. But there's also a lot of turnovers in that stretch too, and we saw when they played the Texans for
the playoffs. Yeah,
it kind of went up in arms, and that's the story on Joe Flacco now. So I don't know what the Colts are doing. The Jets, on the other hand, oh my God, I don't even know where to begin.
Goodness gracious!
So you're a Jets fan, right?
Yes.
So I want to ask you, did you expect this to be this bad?
Do you know the meme of that? It's a famous, not famous meme, but it's a popular funny meme of our expectations for you were low, but holy F.
Yes,
that's kind of what that's kind of what my description of the season. I did not think they'd be good. There was just so many things that would have to go super right for them to make the playoffs and be a good team. But to be this bad is borderline embarrassing.
Well, remember, I picked them to win the division on the opening episode of, when we talked about the NFL predictions.
Right.
Another one of my predictions that was not good. Just like the Jordan Love MVP pick. I will say, if could have happened if he just cut down the turnovers and he wasn't hurt, I expect 1 year he will be in contention.
Yeah.
Because of how QB heavy it is. But anyways, another L on my part. I didn't think the Jets were going to be this bad. I thought they were going to be a playoff team at least. You could talk about Aaron Rodgers disappointing, right? He's 40. He's showing it. He's 40. He's turning 41, I think, right?
Yeah.
He's showing it a bit, right?
Yeah.
But he hasn't been playing terrible. He's not been bad, but fans dunk on him because it's the fun thing. It's, maybe he deserves a little bit of it for his comments, right? I totally understand.
I think as Jets fans, when we say we got Aaron Rodgers, because all of us, especially this age group, grew up watching the guy just, roll was right, roll was left, and just do this and fling it 60 yards right on target to Joey Nelson in Green Bay. But you gotta remember that was 5-6 years ago. Now he's 40 years old, coming with a torn Achilles. He's not going to be doing that. And look, has he been bad as Will Levis, Daniel Jones, those guys? No. but he, for especially a guy, who seems to have as much pull in the organization as he does, just not good enough.
Well, that was the entire premise that gave Jets fans hope, in the sense of, yeah, we don't expect him to be MVP or Aaron Rodgers, but if you're like the 17th best quarterback, 16th best quarterback in the league, which I'd argue he has been this season, at least, some degree. There's been games where he's played bad, but he's certainly been better than what Zach Wilson was giving them last year.
Yeah.
The real reason, in my opinion, that it's a talented team, but the real reason why the Jets are not good or, a bad football team is the defense has regressed to a point where it's unbelievable. I mean, defensively, last year, they were like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys deep, and that gave a lot of teams problems. And that's a trademark of the 49ers, kind of coaching tree of Shanahan, right? And when Saleh came from San Francisco, and he comes into New York, and that defense is, I'll stand by, it was a good hire. I think Saleh is a good defensive coordinator.
Yes.
Now they're short on the defensive line, and the secondaries have regressed a little bit. Sauce hasn't been playing as well as he has.
His tackling's been really bad.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of knew that, though. I mean, that wasn't his thing coming out. It was more so and he's not been terrible, but for the number one corner in the league, he's been taking some L's. That Jets defense has been bad, and it's been shocking to me. I really didn't think it was going to be this bad. I don't know where the Jets go from here, because
it's going to take at least 3 years to fix to me.
Aaron Rodgers is the GM of this team. It looks like that's pretty clear. I don't know if he comes back next year. Even if he does, what's that look like with a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, a defense that's regressed, and it's Aaron Rodgers and his buddies. It's Devontae Adams, it's Alan Lazard. It's a talented team, but it's a collection of individuals more than a team in my opinion. As far as this game goes, I don't know, because I'm gonna get bid again. I'm gonna go with the Jets. They're at home. I think they're gonna play well enough to beat an Anthony Richardson team. I don't think Anthony Richardson's gonna look that great in his return. It also wouldn't shock me if the Jets just lose, because that's what they've been doing. I mean, the locker rooms. I mean, look how flat they came out last week against Arizona. So I'm gonna take the Jets, but it's really a game where one of these teams is gonna win, and one of these teams is gonna get, hopefully, their season back on track a little bit. The other one is just going to keep. I think the Jets season's done, right? The Colts, I also think, are done, just in the sense of
they're not going anywhere.
You look at their schedule.
They're not going anywhere.
You look at their schedule; it's really tough. But I'll say the Jets are going to win this game.
I'll take the Colts. I expect nothing but just negative things from the Jets at this point.
That's fair.
They're not exactly playing a great team either. We just went through that. This isn't a horrible matchup for Anthony Richardson because the secondary is struggling so bad. Richardson just loves this. Ooh, let me just chuck it and see what happens. That might not be the best strategy for this game, and also he can make plays with his legs. He'll also have about 15 balls, just where were you throwing that you were 6 yards off?
Yeah.
But I think the Colts will squeak by just because the Jets team. I mean, the Colts
can't give you anything.
Look, the Colts aren't good, and they're mishandling the Richardson situation, but overall, they're still playing together as a team. I don't think Shane Steichen is quite lost the locker room, though I'm sure there's a few guys ooh, you could handle this better. With the Jets, it's a dumpster fire. So I'll say the Colts sneak by. All right, into the 4:05 slate, Falcons Broncos.
So these are the Broncos have shown they're a decent team. I'm not gonna go as far as say they're good, because I think they are beyond their expectations with Bo Nix at this point in time. They're clearly a well-coached team with Sean Payton. That defense has been really good. I know the two tests, the biggest test they had so far was Baltimore, and their defense got shredded.
Yeah.
But it's for where, again, you talk about timelines with Washington, you talk about timelines with Denver, they're ahead of schedule. Bo Nix has been not sensational, obviously, but that's kind of the book on him was heading out was he's the most pro-ready, I guess, guy. He's not going to he's very experienced. He's kind of the anti-Richardson in the sense of, he played for X amount of, played for a while at Auburn, transferred to Oregon. This guy that played 5-6 years in college.
Yeah.
And extremely well-repped, can run a system well. Maybe not as high of a ceiling as a first round quarterback you'd think, but he has a very high floor, and it's been putting on Sands, I guess, first like week or two. He's been playing pretty solid football. So I think this is a solid Broncos team. They're at home. This is a spot where I really do think the Broncos are going to win, just because, going into the altitude, it's tough. The Falcons have been very hit or miss.
Yes, they have.
It's interesting to me. I mean, you get smashed by the Seahawks one week, you come back, and then you beat the Bucs again, a depleted Bucs team. You beat the Bucs. They're a little bit soft, in my opinion, and then you lose to the Saints, right? Like, you beat the Cowboys as expected. No, they're not a good team. Then you lose to the Saints on the road in a game you need to have if you're going to prove that you're like a legitimate threat in the NFC. They're going to win their division just because.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's bad in the sense that the Bucs are bad, but the way the season has gone for them in terms of injuries.
Yeah, and obviously the Saints and the Panthers are a mess.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go Broncos, though. It's a lot of games this week that are toss-ups. I'm gonna go Denver. I lean Denver at home.
I'm gonna lean Falcons. I still don't buy into the Broncos. They've definitely been better than I thought. I think all of us thought they were going to be. Bum Nux has played well in his first year. He's been a slightly pleasant surprise. They've been a lot better defensively than I thought, and possibly a lot of us thought. Like I said, the Falcons are kind of hit or miss. They're good enough to win in a division that's pretty weak, and especially since the only team that's really contending, Tampa, has obviously just had a lot of things go wrong this year, and they were a flawed team coming in the year, like every other team in that division is. But I think the Falcons sneak by. This will be a really close game.
So, Seahawks, 49ers.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm going to take the Niners. Seattle's been struggling for a while. Obviously, the Niners have had a weird year. Obviously, look at the talent. You're like, wow, this team should be better than 5-4. That's pretty obvious. You've had guys obviously in and out of the lineup. Ayuk is now out for the year. You just got McCaffrey back. Guys have been sliding in and out of the lineup all season. But McCaffrey is back. He looked pretty good in this first game. Now he's got a game under his belt. Ricky Pearsall is stepping up, which is crazy because he was shot 2 months ago, and now he actually had a very good game last week. He's only played a few games this year. Right. So I will take the 49ers in this game.
Yeah, this is like a division rivalry that's not really been such a rivalry.
It just hasn't been that competitive.
Years. I mean, not in the sense of the games have been competitive, but it's clear that the big brother in this division is the 49ers. I mean, DK Metcalf again is talking trash before a game against the 49ers. Every year he does this, and it's like, DK, like, you're a great player, but like, I'm smelling another 3 for 43 with a couple of personal fouls.
Got 3 fights.
Yeah, that just seems like that type of game. It's in Santa Clara. McCaffrey's back. Kittle's still going. Purdy's looking good without him. I mean, and now I guess McCaffrey back. The Seahawks have been up and down, and they had. I think they had this division. In the first couple weeks, it looked like, again, I know the start they had was pretty much schedule dependent, but they really kind of I feel like gave this division away. They really should not be 4-5, but they are. I'm going to go 49ers. The spread is 6.5. I can see them covering by a touchdown, but maybe the Seahawks backdoor. But I think the 49ers will win comfortably either way. Yeah.
There's maybe this game is close in the middle of the third quarter, but I think by this will. I don't think it comes down to like the last possession. They win. Maybe in the third quarter, you're like, it's still close, but by like the last 7-8 minutes, it should be pretty stress-free. All right, game of the week, Chiefs-Bills. You see Nick's hat. It's a Bills hat. As you can see, he's been on the show before. You must know he's a Bills fan, and you're actually going to this game, right?
Yeah, I'll be there.
You will be there. So, Nick, I will give you the floor.
Oh God, I hope I don't. I hope you don't go and I lose. I'm actually this might shock you. I'm very indifferent for this game, right? So, not in the sense of I care tremendously about this football game. I hope you win, as I always do with Bills football. But again, this is not a take I originally had, but I've kind of gotten accustomed to it, and I like what I see. In the sense of, we've beaten them so Josh Allen's record against Mahomes and the Chiefs is 3-4. Can you guess the 3 wins, where they came in?
In like what stadium?
No, I mean just like.
Oh well, they came in the regular season.
Yeah, and then the 4 losses.
Yeah, all in the playoffs.
Last 3 years, we've beaten them all in Arrowhead in the regular season. And whether it's in Arrowhead, 13 seconds, or Buffalo last year.
Tyler Bass.
Well, we would have lost either way.
But yeah, that didn't help.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's in Buffalo or not. It seems we can't beat them in the playoffs until proven otherwise. I don't think we're going to. So I'm not saying this game doesn't mean anything, because that would be stupid, because one, you obviously want to win every game, and two, for seeding, this is an important game. So the Bills' path to the 1 seed is very, it's unlikely considering who they play, but as well as the fact that the Chiefs have such an easy rest of season schedule. I think their toughest games are the Broncos and Chargers. You have a Texans game. Again, I just don't think the way the Chiefs are playing that those teams will be a threat to them. The Bills' path to the 1 seed is if the Broncos had beaten the Chiefs, I'd be like, oh my God, this game is huge for the 1 seed. Because I do think the Bills, if they want to win a Super Bowl, I think they need the 1 seed. I think they need that bye. I think it's been so paramount for the team to get the bye, to get healthy, to recharge, to get that home field advantage. And just the Bills have been so banged up the last couple of years at linebacker, and specifically defensively, to stop Patrick Mahomes, that I think the bye week would help them a lot. And it's just one playoff game. It's simple math. It's one playoff game you don't need to win. So from a 1 seed standpoint, it's important, though I think regardless the Chiefs will get there. Like I said, I will be there. So obviously I will. I really hope we can win. I'm not saying any otherwise. I have a lot of confidence. I don't think it's irrational either. I have a lot of confidence we're going to win this game, because this is very much on brand. We beat them in the regular season, and we lose in the playoffs. And, again, I respect the Chiefs. I think they're Super Bowl favorites for a reason. It's also fair to say that they're not a 9-0 team. They've been playing with their food. They've been getting lucky. And there's a talent to that, right? As annoying as it is, and, you can call it black magic all you want. Mahomes is very clearly one of the best late-game players we've ever seen at the position.
Of course.
There is a talent for that. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. There is a talent for that. That is a tangible thing that he's able to do every week. And their defense is playing incredibly well, keeping them in those games until the fourth quarter when Mahomes has to take over, or third downs when he's in scramble drill and he's got to hit Mahomes and Kelsey and Hopkins and scramble. So I think their time and their luck in the regular season is going to run out, and I think it will be this week against us. I do wonder if we have enough offensive firepower. Kincaid's knee's been banged up. Keon Coleman's already ruled out. Cooper has been dealing with a wrist injury. He's missed the last 2 weeks. I think if I had to give a prediction, he should be good to go. But then again, it's like he's only been in the system for a couple weeks. He's hurt. How much is he really? I think more so he opens space up for other guys. I worry about, who's going to need to step up if those guys can go. Like Matt Collins gave you like 693 last week. He's going to have to step up again. Curtis Samuel, are going to have to get him going. They gave him like a 3-year, $30 million deal in free agency. He's caught like 10 passes this year. And it's strange because Joe Brady has worked with him before, and that Carolina connection, we thought that would be a lot better. We thought he would at the very least, a gadget player in the likes of Isaiah McKenzie and how that's been successful. And he hasn't even been that. So it's strange. And I think certain guys are going to have to step up offensively. Defensively, you're going to have to get pressure on Mahomes. It's always been the thing I think that drags the Bills down, is that in the playoff specifically, we haven't been able to get pressure on him. And that back seven, the way we play defense, the kind of bend, don't break, cover two, keep everything in front of you. We stay in nickel as our base a lot of times. Yeah. So we invite them with light boxes to run the football and keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, blah, blah, blah. You got to get pressure on the quarterback, though. And when you get pressure, you got to win, and you got to get them down. I think that's going to be the difference in the game, whether they can do that. Their left side of the line, the Chiefs, has been bad. Mahomes has been bailing them out because that's how good he is in scramble drill. But I think we can get pressure to him. I think Rousseau is playing great in a contract year. I think we're going to win this game. I think it's going to be close, and it is going to set us up for a playoff loss. in Kansas City.
I'm not
That's
gonna
true. Until I see otherwise, I just have to say that because, like, how many times can you be like,
exactly.
"We're gonna beat the Chiefs. This is the year," and then you lose. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I agree with everything you just said. I do think the Bills win this game. Okay, look, this is not a 17-0 team.
no.
Like, look, will they be 13, 4, 14,
Oh,
3? I'm
yeah.
sure they will be. Obviously, they'll win the division, no problem. I do think they will be the 1 seed, just the lack of competition in the AFC. The Bills are a very good team. Are they a team that will be a 1 seed? I'm not sure. I mean, they're 2 games ahead. They're 2 games behind the Chiefs. They have 2 losses. Chiefs have 0. If they win this game, obviously they get a game closer there. But I think the Bills will win this game. They've played much better against the Chiefs in the regular season than in the postseason. It's in the numbers, obviously, and overall they've looked better. The Chiefs are going to lose at some point, probably multiple times. Yeah, it's just going to happen. So, do I think the Bills will beat the Chiefs in the playoffs? No. I also don't see it happening.
I mean, it could, but
I
hope so.
Right. As a fan, you hope so. I personally don't see it. I mean, I don't have a horse in the race, obviously. Yeah, I'm a Jets fan. We're division rivals. I don't have any sort of hatred towards the Bills whatsoever. I despise the Patriots and the Dolphins way more than the Bills, honestly. It's really not close.
I think I mean, not to like, this won't make you feel any better, but I don't really despise the Jets that much.
Yeah.
I don't like Dolphins fans.
Me either.
I don't like the Dolphins, period. And I don't like I didn't like the Patriots. Now I kind of do root for them to just like, I'm excited by what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I hate Dolphins fans. I can't.
Oh, good. They're brutal. But yeah, they're nauseating. But yeah, so I still don't like the Chiefs beat them in the playoff. It's the same thing like you're a Yankees fan, Yankees Astros. Like they just
the only way we got to the World Series, we got lucky just to not play them. And then we played a real team, and now an AL Central team, and
got shellacked.
You got Boone played over manager 25, and we lost the series in 5, and it was a really embarrassing way to go out.
Yeah, so this is the same kind of thing, but I think the Bills will win this game, but should be a great game. All right, Sunday Night Football, Bengals at the Chargers.
I'm gonna go Bengals. Now the Chargers are a good team. I mean, they beat the teams they're supposed to be. They're very in the vein of Denver in the sense of I feel like they're kind of the same situation going on where you kind of have a little bit of a reset following both previous coaches getting fired and it not working out. And there's a guy that comes in that kind of establishes a different culture, gets them to be a better coach team, Harbaugh and Peyton respectively. Obviously, Justin Herbert is not Bo Nix in a good sense. Bo Nix, first year, right? I'm not trying to criticize him too much, but he's no Justin Herbert. Herbert's one of the most, you could say at least top 10 quarterbacks in the league, right? And he's been playing really good, and he doesn't really have much weapons to go to. I mean, he has a Georgia player in Ladd McConkey. He's been great, but he's not really a one. Quentin Johnson has been playing better, but he's not obviously what they drafted him in the first round yet. We'll see. But J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards is a decent running back duo, but they're really just winning games like Jim Harbaugh teams win games at Michigan, where it's like great defense, kind of game managing your way through it, except you have Justin Herbert, who's not J.J. McCarthy. He's incredibly talented physically. He has been he's a vet at this point. He's like a fifth-year guy. I mean, I'm excited to see what this Chargers team can be in like a year from now, or 2 years from now. They're a playoff team this year. I don't think they're as desperate as the Bengals.
No, but not by any means. No,
the Bengals need to win out. Well, not win out, but they need to.
They're gonna have to probably go 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, just like the Colts, except I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase can will this team to that record.
Yeah,
and
their schedule's is much. It's
manageable.
Pretty soft. It's pretty soft.
Not to mention, you want to bring it back really quickly to the Chiefs-Bills conversation. As a second seed, if you're Buffalo, if you're, let's say Kansas City drops as number 2 seed, do you want to see the 7 seed Bengals? No. I mean, yeah, their defense is bad, terrible even, but Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow in the playoffs, and when you get T. Higgins back as well, like, I don't want to see them in the 7 seed. I don't at all. Like, if they sneak in, which I think they will, because you'll have for sure the number 2 in the AFC North, whether that's Steelers or Ravens, in. You'll have the Chargers in.
Yeah.
And then there's one spot left, and it's the Bengals, like Denver. Dolphins, Colts. Out of those 4, like it's pretty clear who the best team in that grouping
Bengals
is.
on paper have a best roster by a country mile,
Despite the fact they have no defense, but their offense is that good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go Bengals. I think they're the more desperate team. They're not even favored in this game, which is crazy to me. I guess the idea is that like road team, bad defense. Yeah, if you're gonna talk about my underdog pick of the week, it's probably them. I mean, they're a desperate team. They need to win this game. It's in a dome, which is pretty. Well, not dome. I guess Tech SoFi is kind of like enclosed, but it's good conditions for like fireworks. Well, at least from the Bengals' perspective, we'll see what Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnson can do. I think the Bengals are going to win this game. I think it's going to be close. I mean, Jim Harbaugh teams rarely get blown out.
Yeah.
Unless it's playing Ohio State before they had their number. So I'm going to go Bengals.
I'll take the Bengals as well. This should be a very good game. This is a game. If the Chargers win, you feel really good about yourself. You're 7-3. You have a game with the Chiefs coming up, so you have a chance to prove yourself against. But maybe if you can steal one with the Chiefs, making the playoffs gets a lot easier. And the good news is if you lose, you're still not in a horrible spot. The Bengals, if you win, okay, now you're starting to kind of string them together. Well, they're not string them together because you lost last week, but all right. 5-6, the back half of that AFC bracket isn't great. Denver, we'll see we'll see what happens with the Denver Broncos, if they win or not. But they probably aren't threatened by the Colts.
It's also a manageable schedule too.
Yeah, and they have a pretty easy schedule down the stretch. But if they lose, now it's just like, okay, your season it's gonna, even though they'd still be in the race and their schedule is favorable, making the playoffs now is gonna be really tough. If they can't stop anybody, and they're as poorly coached as they are, it's gonna be hard. At that point, now you might have to almost win out, and that's gonna be really hard. That's be hard to do. Yes, our schedule was favorable, but to run a table, very hard to do, and it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
So Bengals are definitely more desperate, and I'll say they sneak by. This should be a very good game, a very close game. But I think the Bengals sneak by because they are as desperate as it gets in this league right now.
Yep. So, final game. It's a Texas showcase game.
Yep.
Texans at Dallas in the Sun Bowl. No. It's going to be nighttime, so you don't have to worry about the sun. But, yeah. Your thoughts on this game?
I mean, I'm taking the Houston Texans. They are slumping a bit. Stroud's in a bit of a slump. We mentioned earlier the offensive line is banged up. It's struggling. Nico Collins, I think, will help a lot getting him back.
Yeah, I think he's going to be back this week.
Yeah,
for sure.
that's what it's trending towards for sure. And Dallas, they're just lost right now. So I'll take the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys they're such a disappointing team to me. I mean, you head into the offseason and there's weaknesses on this team that's held them back the last 3 years. It's run defense, too squishy in between the
they can't
tackles,
stop anybody.
And they don't have a second option sans CD, like with CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
Right? Brandon Cooks isn't that anymore. You don't have Amari Cooper for a while, right? So they need that second option. And they don't have a run game. They don't want to run the ball.
They cannot run the ball. It's very bad. It's very concerning.
I mean, since prime Zeke, or whatever prime version of Zeke was gone, right? They've gone to Tony Pollard for like a season. He was good for a season. And then they used him full time, and he wasn't as good.
Effective.
And then they went to Rico Dowdle, and he's okay. And they have Deuce Vaughn, who's a scat back, and he's not really the prototypical NFL running back. They refuse to run the ball. I don't think they can, and they don't want to. And no Dak for the rest of the season. No. So, and your backup quarterback isn't anything to speak about. I mean, I don't know why Cooper Rush is even playing. You have Trey Lance, who you spent a 4th round pick on to acquire for situations like this.
Yeah.
And I think he got in the Eagles game, and they got benched right after. It's a mess in Dallas. I mean, it's a talent. It used to be a talent. It still is a somewhat talented team, but just too banged up, too stubborn, not enough talent at the quarterback position anymore. they're heading in the totally wrong direction, and they have a sitting duck at head coach. Why is McCarthy still here?
I don't understand. Should have been fired 2 years ago, and and definitely this year.
It's just negligence and stubbornness from their owner,
Jerry Jones. Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to be on the train of my brother's a Cowboys fan. I'm kind of locked into.
Really? Okay.
He's the only one that's not a Bills fan. So yeah, I'm kind of locked into all things Cowboys.
Right.
I used to be like, okay, this team has talent. They just have a few issues they need to iron out, and they're a legitimate Super Bowl team. I know it's funny to laugh at them, but these have been issues that I feel like have plagued them for the last couple of years. They have not been addressed, and now they're coming to the forefront. And you know what? Maybe this is the best thing that can happen to them. Fire Mike McCarthy. They get a top pick. Jerry Jones isn't going anywhere. But Dak sits rest of the season. He's back healthy for next year. And you could attack next year, hopefully at least being a playoff team. I mean, this is a stacked NFC now, but I'm going to go Texans, and I'm going to go they're -7. That's not enough. That's not enough in my opinion. There's no home field advantage anyways. Like, I mean, I don't think Cowboys fans even want to watch this game anyways. So I'm going to go Houston, and I'm going to go them. I'm going to pick them to cover too.
I think they will as well. That's all I got for you guys today, Nick. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Let's do this again soon. Until next time, so long, and have a great day.